In May of 2020, thousands of people from all over the UK took to the streets of this small northern town. Just days earlier, a Facebook post revealed the existence of a disturbing sexual trafficking network operating in the area, and the whole country was in outrage. But everything wasn't as it seemed. The truth just happened to be even more shocking than what people initially thought. Today, we're getting into how a Facebook post divided the small town of Barrow. This story gets real wild. Before we dive into today's video, I just want to give a big shout out to CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring this content. With over 38 million users worldwide and an excellent Trustpilot rating, CyberGhost VPN is one of the most recommended VPN providers on the market. By using CyberGhost VPN, you can hide your IP address and reroute your traffic through a secure tunnel, keeping your data encrypted from hackers, your ISP, and even CyberGhost itself, thanks to its no-log policy. This allows you to stay completely anonymous online. CyberGhost gives you access to servers in over 100 countries with no restrictions. Whether you want to protect your digital identity or bypass geo-restrictions, this VPN has you covered. You can unlock content from over 35 streaming services, meaning I can watch Netflix libraries from the US, Japan, Canada, and Australia, all from my bedroom in London. This app is available on all operating systems and supports up to 7 devices simultaneously, making it perfect for sharing with family and friends. Plus, CyberGhost offers a 45-day money-back guarantee, so you could try it risk-free. By using my link in the description, you'll get CyberGhost VPN free for 4 months. Not only that, but you also get 84% off, which makes it just £1.66 per month. Check it out and enjoy secure browsing. Barrow-in-Furness is just like any other small northern town in Britain. It's quite run down, there's not really much to do, and has a community where everyone knows everyone. Not much typically happens in this quiet seaside town, but on the 19th of May this would all change. A 19-year-old Barrow local called Ellie Williams was missing, and it wasn't the first time. Her unexplained disappearance led to a seemingly routine missing persons plea, posted on the local Barrow Facebook page, which was shared around town. For most people, nothing seemed particularly unusual. A young person going missing overnight is hardly breaking news. The best guess was that Ellie was probably just at a friend's house and hadn't told her family. However, this wasn't the case. The following day, Ellie was found, and she had a story to tell. A story that would break the nation. In a Facebook post spanning over 1,300 words, Ellie reveals that her disappearance wasn't as innocent as it may have seemed. She tells her Facebook friends that the previous night she was forced into the back of a car, taken to an unknown address, and made to have sex with 3 Asian men. And to make it all even more shocking, she says this is nothing new. Ellie reveals that this has been happening to her and other young girls in Barrow since she was 12 years old, creating a state of panic within the whole town. The injuries she showed were heartbreaking, and the details of what she had endured were even more distressing, resulting in the post being shared over 100,000 times by people from all over the country. And if matters couldn't get any worse, Ellie would soon be arrested by local police after posting her story online. People couldn't believe it. Ellie, who had been a victim of a sick and twisted gang for years, had just been arrested for speaking her truth, and the British public were absolutely enraged. Ellie's allegations came at a time when similar cases of grooming gangs were coming to light in areas like Leeds and Rotherham, and the residents of Barrow weren't going to let the same thing continue in their town. A Facebook group was thus created named Justice for Ellie, and was used as a base to organise protests and share information on who people believed were involved in the grooming of Ellie. The group amassed over 100,000 members in its first week of being open, all determined to bring Ellie's abusers to justice. Ellie described the main abuser as being a local Asian business owner who was well known and well respected in the Barrow community. With Barrow's population being over 95% white British and just 1% Asian, it wasn't difficult for locals to have a good idea on who Ellie was alluding to. It was a man who locals called Mo Rami. Mo Rami was well loved and well known throughout Barrow. He owned nightclubs, bars, restaurants and ice cream vans vans all over the town and had cultivated a clean reputation as a successful family man. But after Ellie's Facebook post, Mo swiftly found himself as the most hated man in town. His shops, ice cream vans, house and cars were all smashed and vandalized, and his kids were tormented to the point where they had to leave education. But Mo's family wasn't the only ones to receive this treatment. At the time, the town of Barrow was home to just over 900 Asian residents, 83 of whom would go on to report hate crimes in the weeks following Ellie's post. Many local Asian shops were subjected to vandalism by groups of locals, and some Asian residents reported instances of being attacked while out and about. The situation was so dire that many had to leave town, and more trouble was still yet to come. On March the 23rd, approximately 2,000 people gathered in Barrow from across the country to stage a massive protest. They wanted answers of why an innocent 19-year-old girl had just been arrested after exposing her abusers. And in the thick of all of it, a familiar face arrives, Mr. Tommy Robinson, a right-wing commentator who is most known for being the founder of a group called the English Defence League, which before it was banned from the UK was known to hold massive rallies mainly against the Muslim community inside England. Tommy Robinson himself has always been very open about his anti-Islamic beliefs, and was actually one of the first to bring attention to what people now call Muslim grooming gangs. Now with Mo Rami, a Muslim man, being accused of such a case, Tommy was one of the first public figures to go investigate what was happening, and was right there with the rest of the protesters. Tommy was preparing to make a documentary about the situation to build awareness about the case, but as he's going around interviewing people in the town, something weird and unexpected happens. A local speaks to Tommy and puts him in contact with a local young man called Jordan Trengrove, and when Tommy manages to get a hold of Jordan, he tells Tommy something that is even more shocking than what everything already seemed. It was a random Friday in March of 2019 when Jordan and his two friends were enjoying a night out in Barrow's town centre. While out, Jordan shared a video on his Snapchat story showing him and his friends having a good time, and eventually Jordan will receive a message from a then 18-year-old Ellie Williams asking if she could join them partying. Jordan didn't know Ellie too well, but had some interactions with her as she worked at a nightclub Jordan frequently went to, so Jordan accepted and continued on his night drinking and partying with Ellie and his two friends. From the outside in, everything looked normal on the night, until 2 months later when Ellie had something shocking to tell police.
Sunbury Police, what's the emergency?
He walked out my flat.
What's your name?
Ellie.
What's been happening that you want him out?
He just smacked me.
Do you need an ambulance? Ellie, has he come back in? Just answer yes or no. Ellie, if you're not able to speak, can you just press the number 5 twice? Okay, Ellie, we're coming to you as an emergency, okay? Just try and stay as safe as you can.
Ellie told police that Jordan had just forcibly entered her flat, physically assaulted her, and sexually assaulted her. Subsequently, Ellie was brought into the station for questioning, and arrived with bruises all over her face and body fresh from the incident.
He smacked me. And then he started fighting me. So I was trying to push him out the door. Couldn't. He had a knife, he was waving it around, threatening me with it.
What's his full name?
Trengrove.
So his full name is Jordan Trengrove, yeah?
Pulled my hair, pulled me into the bathroom, stripped me naked, he was beating me up with a shower head. He was hitting me. Sex me.
And then obviously after all this has happened, there's been quite a few messages.
Yeah.
She tells police this isn't the first time this has happened, and says it all started on that night out with Jordan on the 8th of March. The messages Ellie received were key to the case. Ellie provided police with threatening messages from a Snapchat account with the username JTrengy7. The chat pretty much proved that Jordan had sex with Ellie against her will, and was enough evidence for police to bring him in for questioning. But despite the evidence from the messages, Jordan completely denies the accusations. He states that he's not once been into Ellie's flat and debunks any claims of sexual and physical violence towards her. From Jordan's accounts, the last time he'd even seen Ellie was the night that they went clubbing, and claims that even on that night they went their separate ways at the end. But Ellie's injuries and messages told another story. Jordan was put on bail for charges relating to the sexual assault and harassment of Ellie, and the news travelled around Barrow like a wildfire. Only a couple days after Jordan was bailed, his house windows were smashed and threats were made to his life, which made it even more shocking when it happened again. Less than a week after Ellie's first police interview, she's back at the police station with new bruises and new threatening messages from Jordan. This time, the police decide for Ellie's safety and well-being, Jordan will be remanded in prison on 3 counts of sexual assault, finally putting an end to Ellie's nightmare. But that's what the police initially thought would happen anyway. Soon after Jordan was remanded, Ellie's behaviour started taking a turn for the worse. Every other week she was reported missing by family members, and every time police or a family found her, she was always heavily intoxicated and was often found quite heavily bruised. On one occasion, one of her eyes were completely swollen shut, and on another occasion, one of her fingers had been partially severed. With Jordan locked up and unable to physically harm Ellie during this period, police knew something much bigger was going on here, and after weeks of dodging police questioning, Ellie will eventually tell officers something that would kickstart the town's biggest police investigation in history.
So, what are we coming to talk about today? I was young, stupid. Just go to house parties and stuff. And then at the house parties from older men. And I got introduced to Rami. He told me how special I was, how much he loved me. Made me think that I was his girlfriend for a long, long time. He asked me to do a favour. Rami begged me to go have sex with one of his friends, said that I'd be doing him a massive favour. So I did. And then he said it wasn't happening again. It was just a one-off, but then it wasn't a one-off. It started getting more and more often. And then it turns out Rami was getting money whenever I was having sex with other men. And then we started taking it parties, and it started being like, instead of just 1 or 2 men, it'd be loads. 2 houses in Barrow that were all the time, and then like a couple in Rochdale and Oldham. Then it was just everywhere. Whichever man was willing to pay the most money, you go with. They tell us they can treat us how we want because they're white trash. Every time you messed up, you get a beating. So if I wasn't wearing the right thing, or I hadn't made them £100 that night, you get punishment for it. I'll threaten to give you everything, or strangle you, or suffocate you. And then they'll say that we're their bitches, under their control, to do what they say, to do what we're told to do, otherwise they'll kill us.
Detectives were left gobsmacked. Ellie had just told police that a local businessman named Mo Rami had been sexually trafficking her around the country since she was 12 years old, and provides police with a list of 60 other young girls from Barrow who were also trafficked by Mo Rami and his gang.
You know where to sit this time? Okay.
Yeah, like all the girls that are on there,
Yeah.
I've been to addresses with them because that's how I know that they're involved.
Right, okay.
She's been involved in it for ages though, like she moves between Barrow and Whitehaven. I don't really know her that well, she's at school.
Ellie goes into great detail of the terrible things she witnessed while being exploited. She tells police that the young girls would be beaten, stabbed and forcibly injected with heroin if they didn't comply with the gang, and even claims that some of the girls were trafficked internationally to places like Amsterdam, Ibiza and Pakistan to meet the demands of their clients. As crazy as it all sounded, police knew the allegations weren't too far-fetched. In the last decade, similar and even bigger operations like this had came to national attention, more notably an operation in the northern town of Rotherham, where a gang of men were found guilty of sexually exploiting up to 1,400 underage kids for more than 3 decades. Due to police failures in handling similar situations in the past, Barrow police were under immense pressure to act on Ellie's claims immediately. Ellie was moved out of Barrow for her own protection, and worked closely with detectives to pinpoint any and everyone who was involved. Most recently, Ellie told police she had been trafficked in the seaside town of Blackpool, so authorities decided it would be there they would begin their investigation. With the trip to Blackpool still being fresh in Ellie's mind, she was able to give a detailed analysis on exactly what went down there.
It wasn't like a house, it was more like a roll shop. Just like a little tiny hall with orangey colour walls, Star Wars kind of.
She told police she was transported from Barrow to Blackpool on the 30th of June and was met by Morami, who forced her inside 4 different premises where she was forced to have sex with multiple men. Ellie managed to provide police with the registration number of the car that transported her around and the name of a takeaway spot which was used to host one of her assaults. Everything appeared to align for the police. The car registration was traced to an address in Blackpool, as well as the takeaway shop, and the timeline of events coincided with periods when Ellie had been reported missing by her family. So the next step for police was to now take her back to Blackpool, in hopes of identifying all 4 buildings where she had been forced into.
Where he wants to go now, left?
Yes.
For 2 days straight, 2 officers drove Ellie across the town.
The beach bit there.
Yeah, and then we walked further along.
Ellie's task was to walk the officers through exactly how her Blackpool trip went down.
I got in a car that pulled up along here.
Whereabouts was that?
Somewhere along here.
If Ellie could provide the exact streets and buildings where she had been maneuvered between, police would be able to tap into CCTV cameras and identify her captures. But unfortunately, Ellie was unable to provide any leads to the case. While driving around with officers, Ellie seemed nervous and uncomfortable. Officers believed bringing her back to the same place where she was abused and assaulted was triggering her old fears, potentially causing her to withhold key information. But detectives weren't willing to let Ellie's case go to dust. They vowed to uncover the truth, with or without her cooperation. Their starting point was to look into every hotel and Airbnb within the Blackpool vicinity. Officers visited over 50 hotels to see if they had came in contact with Ellie around the 30th of June, and sure enough, they struck gold. Ellie had checked into a particular guest house named the Savoy Hotel, located in Blackpool, and the day she checked in so happened to be the same day she went missing. This was a massive win for detectives. For the first time in this case, they had proof that Ellie was in Blackpool during the time when she was trafficked. Morami had already been questioned by the police and denied that he had ever been in contact with Ellie. So now all they needed was CCTV footage of Ellie and Morami together to prove he was lying and finally arrest him. But what the CCTV showed was something arguably even more disturbing than what the police was hoping for. On the 30th of June, around 8:20 in the evening, cameras show Ellie arriving at the Savoy Hotel, alone. After she checks in, she goes to her room for around an hour before leaving, where street cameras spot her visiting a supermarket 5 minutes away. Inside the store, she buys milk and some snacks before heading back to the Savoy Hotel. On her way back, she spotted taking a picture of a vehicle alongside the footpath, as well as a takeaway store, which was close by, before entering back into a hotel alone, not to be seen till the next day after checking out. Hotel cameras confirm not a single person apart from Ellie was seen entering her room, confirming Ellie had lied about the whole deal that took place in Blackpool. Despite her claims, Ellie was not forced into any buildings by Mulramy. Mulramy wasn't even in Blackpool, and the car registration plate and the takeaway spot she claimed she was abused in happened to be the same one that she took pictures of while she was walking back towards the hotel. Ellie had now gone from victim to suspect overnight, raising doubts if there was any truth to any of Ellie's stories. To move forward in Ellie's case, detectives needed solid evidence and hoped to get this through statements from other victims. Luckily for police, Ellie had wrote down the names and addresses of 60 other young girls from Barrow who were subjected to the same abuse that she was. So it was now time to bring them in for questioning. And to police's surprise, every single one of them insisted they had not been involved in any type of grooming. The case was a big mystery. It wasn't like Ellie had no signs of being abused. She was regularly reported missing, often showed signs of bruising, and had evidence of messages from her abusers. But for some reason, Ellie was lying to the same people who were trying to help her out. Nothing was making sense until a lead came through that put any suspicions left to bed. In the background, detectives were looking into the Snapchat accounts and phone numbers which were sending her threatening messages. And with the help of location data, it was discovered that all messages that were directed towards her were coming from a second phone which she possessed, meaning all the messages which she was receiving were sent by herself to herself. The truth was, Ellie was making it all up. She was going missing on purpose to look like she was being kidnapped. And while missing, she would buy hammers and knives from local stores to cut and hit herself to make it seem like somebody was abusing her. After she was found by police or family members, she would use a second phone to fabricate messages from her supposed abusers to make the act look as realistic as possible. In the station, the decision had been made to arrest Ellie on charges of perverting the course of justice. But before they could arrest her, once again, Ellie is reported as missing.
You alright? Eh? What's gone on? You okay? Have you taken something? Sit down. Sit down for me. Sit down.
This time, she's found 12 hours later inside her flat and is in a bad state. This was the worst condition that Ellie had been in yet. Her whole body was bruised and beaten. She could barely even talk. She's taken to hospital for treatment and afterwards is once again interviewed by a detective.
I was getting messages how I've got to get the train to Preston. So I walked up through Preston Town Centre and Ollie was there.
Now Ellie has a new story.
They walked me through this back street to two Asian men who both paid Ollie to have sex with me.
She gave police another name, a young man named Oliver Garden.
And then when I got back to Barrow, Salsa picked me up in a car and dropped me off just outside mine. And then he'd come in, followed by another man, and I'd had sex with both of them. He smacks me twice in my face. And he walks out and he slams the door. About 10 minutes later, the police knocked at the door.
She claims that she was forced on a train to Preston, where she met Oliver, who then proceeded to take her to a back street to have sex with two Asian men. But once again, CCTV footage tells another story. Surveillance shows that Ellie arrives at Preston train centre at 9:30 PM on the 18th of July. After leaving the station, she walks through Preston town centre, and while walking, she just manages to bump into Oliver as he's making his way home from a family party. As seen here on CCTV footage, Oliver approaches a couple in front of him, attempting to strike up a conversation. He appears to be looking for a lighter for a cigarette. After the couple walks away from him, Oliver notices Ellie nearby and asks her for a lighter next, which she willingly agrees, rummages through her bag and hands him one. After Oliver lights his cigarette, he gives Ellie back her lighter and appears to try and walk off. But Ellie seems to try and catch up with Oliver and strike a conversation with him. The pair walk down the street together and eventually hit an alleyway, which Oliver tells police they had consensual sex and trade phone numbers. Nowhere on CCTV Ellie is approached or communicates with two Asian men, and while in Preston, no signs show that somebody had injured her, but for some reason when she's found back at her flat in the early hours of the next day, she is covered in bruises from her leg to her head, which she claims was inflicted by Oliver the day before. There was no proof that this was caused by Ollie, but there was proof that she had done it to herself, as in her room a blood-stained hammer was discovered, which she had purchased the day before. With Ellie now in police custody, they are now able to charge her for her false claims. To make stuff easier for everyone, Barrow officers give her a chance to admit her wrongdoings, and there was no better way to get her to do that than show her the footage which proves she had been lying this whole time.
Okay, this is an audio recorded interview being conducted at Barrow Police Station. These are pictures that are taken from the CCTV at the Savoy Hotel. How do you come to that?
Can't explain.
What we've ended up with is information that contradicts your version of events. Do you understand how serious this is?
I do. I feel bad for lying. I am really, really sorry for it, but I haven't felt safe enough. They basically know that I've been speaking to the police and they've told me to tell you certain things that would put you off the scent of tracing them.
The difficulty is, at least, that you told us lies.
I know.
And if you tell us lies,
it's hard to believe the truth because lies have
Absolutely.
been said. I get it, I do get it. But I don't get these bruises for no reason, you know.
my concern is now, how did you get those bruises?
Well, how? You tell me.
Self-inflicted.
Are you having a laugh?
People go to prison for making false allegations.
I know. I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to be that girl that cries rape. I'm not that person. I'm not that person.
For the first time, Ellie admits that she had been lying, but is now claiming there's reasons behind her fibs. She's now claiming that her real abusers had been forcing her to deceive the police, as part of a ploy to divert attention away from them. However, the police were unconvinced of Ellie's new story, and charged her for perverting the course of justice. Ellie was released on bail while her case was being investigated, with strict conditions requiring her to return home by 7 PM each day. It didn't take long, however, for Ellie to violate these conditions. On the 18th of May 2020, Ellie goes missing once again, and was eventually discovered in a local field with additional injuries.
Stop and chat. What's gone on? What's happened there?
Nothing. I just need to go home. I'm late home. I need to go home.
Do you want to come to our van with us, mate? Come on, van's on the road. You keep looking. Is someone back there? Because you're looking behind as if you're worried someone's there.
No, I'm just.
Don't feel like you're being totally honest with me.
I should have been home for 7.
Yeah, we know about your court conditions.
It shouldn't have happened.
Come and have a sit in here and we'll have a chat. Where are you bleeding from there?
My finger.
Has that happened with a knife?
Say nothing to no one about anything.
She's found with a bruised eye alongside hammer injuries to the legs and abdomen, alleging that this was done by 10 Asian men as punishment for her speaking to the police. However, when police searched the field, they found the hammer she had purchased earlier that day, with only her DNA on it. Ellie's self-inflicted injuries were becoming more and more severe, raising concerns that she might eventually cause her own death if she didn't stop. So 2 days after she was found in the field, the decision was made that Ellie's bail would be revoked and she will be placed in jail until she is ready to face her charges. With the truth now coming to light, Jordan Trengrove was finally released from custody after spending 73 days in prison, and Mo Rami was now cleared from the investigation. The allegations made by Ellie had a devastating impact on the lives of both men involved. Throughout the whole ordeal, rumours regarding Ellie's claims were circulating widely across Barrow, further amplifying the scrutiny faced by the accused. As a result, Jordan lost his freedom, spending over 2 months in custody, while Mo was forced to shut down his businesses, severely affecting his livelihood and reputation. But for Mo, the worst was still yet to come. Ellie's desperation to be believed was hitting an all-time high, and with the police now deciding to remand her until the investigation finishes its course, she realized she didn't have long left to push out a fabricated story, so decided it was time to take it to social media. In a 1,350-word post, Ellie releases her story on Facebook, primarily focusing her allegations on Barrow's small Asian community, which leads us back to where we started off: massive riots, cries of injustice, and racially motivated attacks.
Yeah, alright. Well, mate, I appreciate you giving us your time.
When Tommy Robinson hears of Jordan's story, he was stunned. Everything was a lie, but the uproar had already escalated beyond control. £22,000 had already been raised to support Ellie's legal fees, and protests were now even spreading outside of Barrow. So in one of the most unexpected turn of events, Tommy, who has always been vocal about his dislike of Islam, set out to clear the names of Barrow's small Muslim community. Tommy goes around Barrow and interviews various Muslim business owners, finally giving them the platform to tell their story. One of these business owners being Mo Rami, the supposed mastermind behind the whole grooming operation. Mo flat out denies all allegations made by Ellie and talks about how his whole life has came crashing down. But midway through Tommy and Mo's interview, Tommy is arrested on charges linked to the riot. The issue was, police believed Tommy had bad intentions inside Barrow. Police were aware that Mo Rami was innocent and feared that Tommy's involvement in reporting the situation would only add more fuel to the false narrative. As a result, they legally barred and prevented him from covering anything related to the Barrow investigation, which unintentionally delayed Mo Rami and the Muslim community from getting their names cleared. Ellie pleaded her innocence to the very end, but the evidence against her resulted in her being found guilty of 9 counts of perverting the course of justice, which she was sentenced to 8.5 years for. For Mo, Jordan and other victims, they could finally rest knowing their names are cleared, but in reality, life has never been the same for any of them. Ellie's case is a stark reminder of how powerful misinformation could be, but it's also important to note that cases like this can and have been true in the past. If you or someone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, please don't let the story stop you reporting it from the police, and hopefully you can seek the justice you deserve.